Harold's heart raced as he pulled into the driveway of his family's secluded vacation home. The chilling wind whispered through the tall pines that surrounded the property, creating an eerie symphony of rustling leaves. It had been years since he last visited, and the memories of joyous family gatherings clashed with the desolate atmosphere that now enveloped the once welcoming abode. The plan was simple, a quiet weekend retreat to clear his mind. Harold needed a break from the stress of his demanding job and the constant buzz of city life. Little did he know that this peaceful escape would morph into a nightmare that would haunt him for years to come. As Harold stepped into the dimly lit living room, memories flooded back. The crackling fireplace, the laughter of loved ones, all silenced by the passage of time. He shook off the nostalgia and focused on unpacking his meager belongings. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows, creating an illusion of movement in the stillness. That night, Harold was startled awake by a strange noise. The wind howled outside, but this was different. A creaking sound, as if someone were tiptoeing through the house. He dismissed it as a product of an overactive imagination, attributing the unsettling feeling to the unfamiliarity of his surroundings. The following day, Harold explored the nearby woods to clear his head. The dense foliage swallowed him whole, and the branches seemed to whisper secrets to one another. As he wandered deeper into the forest, he stumbled upon an old cemetery, its weathered tombstones standing like silent sentinels. One grave, in particular, caught his eye. A neglected marker with the name Eleanor barely visible through the moss. That evening, as Harold returned to the house, a bone-chilling gust of wind extinguished the candles. In the oppressive darkness, he felt a presence, a subtle shift in the air that sent shivers down his spine. A fleeting glimpse of a figure in the hallway vanished before he could fully comprehend it. His logical mind dismissed it as a trick of the shadows, but unease lingered in the pit of his stomach. Desperation clawed at Harold as he tried to find logical explanations for the mysterious occurrences. The solitude, once a source of solace, now magnified every creak and groan of the old house. Little did he know that the true horror had only just begun. Harold's restless night had left him weary, but a sense of duty pushed him to explore the unsettling occurrences. Armed with a flashlight, he ventured into the attic, a space untouched for years. Dust danced in the narrow beam of light as he rummaged through forgotten relics of the past. Among the forgotten belongings, Harold discovered an old photo album. Its brittle pages chronicled the history of the house, birthdays, holidays, and the smiling faces of relatives he barely remembered. But one photo stood out, a group picture taken in front of the house, with a solemn-looking woman standing at the edge, her eyes obscured by shadows. Eleanor. The pieces started to come together as Harold delved into the history of the house. Eleanor, a distant relative, had been shunned by the family for reasons lost to time. Rumors of her practicing dark arts and communing with spirits tainted her memory. Haunted by curiosity, Harold began to unravel the secrets concealed within the old walls. He found forgotten diaries hidden in the attic, each entry recounting Eleanor's desperate attempts to reconnect with the family that had abandoned her. Her sorrow leaped from the pages, and Harold couldn't escape the feeling that her spirit lingered, yearning for closure. Driven by a mix of compassion and fear, Harold delved deeper into the paranormal. He discovered an ancient mirror tucked away in the corner of the attic, a family heirloom with a dark history. Legend spoke of its ability to reveal spirits trapped between worlds. As Harold gazed into the mirror, the room seemed to distort. Shadows danced along the edges of his vision, and Eleanor's face emerged from the depths of the glass. Her hollow eyes bore into his soul, and a mournful wail echoed through the attic. Determined to free Eleanor's spirit, Harold researched ancient rituals and consulted with local experts on paranormal phenomena. The once isolated retreat now buzzed with activity as he gathered tools, candles, and obscure ingredients for the ritual that would either end the haunting or plunge him further into the abyss. The night of the ritual arrived, the air heavy with anticipation. The flickering candlelight cast wavering shadows on the walls as Harold recited incantations from crumbling pages. The temperature dropped, and a spectral figure materialized in the room. Eleanor's presence was palpable, and a mixture of sorrow and gratitude emanated from her ethereal form. In that moment, the house groaned, as if releasing a long-held breath. Shadows retreated, and a serene calm settled over the once tormented space. The curse that had plagued the family for generations seemed to dissipate with the dissolving mist of Eleanor's ghost. Harold collapsed, drained by the supernatural ordeal. As dawn painted the sky, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a burden carried by generations before him. The house, once a vessel of sorrow, now stood silent, its secrets laid to rest. But as Harold caught his breath, he couldn't shake the feeling that some shadows lingered in the corners, watching, waiting. The legacy of Eleanor's suffering had ended, but the echoes of the past refused to fade entirely. The line between the living and the dead remained blurred, a testament to the enduring power of a family's secrets. Days turned into weeks, and Harold tried to resume a semblance of normalcy. The once haunted house stood silent, its walls holding the echoes of a troubled past. Yet, an unsettling feeling lingered, as if the spirits of generations past were still whispering through the corridors. Harold, unable to shake off the remnants of the supernatural, sought solace in the company of friends and the distractions of daily life. The city beckoned, offering the noise and chaos that provided a stark contrast to the eerie quiet of the secluded retreat. However, the memories of the haunting persisted, manifesting in fleeting glimpses of shadows and inexplicable chills down his spine. One evening, as Harold sat alone in his city apartment, the phone rang, an old rotary phone that hadn't rung in years. The sound sent shivers down his spine as he hesitantly picked up the receiver. A hushed voice, ethereal and distant, whispered fragments of forgotten secrets and long-buried regrets. It was Eleanor, or at least a manifestation of her spirit. The connection to the other side had not been fully severed. The ritual, it seemed, had only opened a door rather than closed one. Eleanor's voice pleaded for forgiveness and understanding, a final plea to reconcile with a family that had abandoned her. Haunted by a sense of responsibility, Harold returned to the vacant house, the oppressive silence now replaced by the echoes of spectral conversations. The line between the living and the dead blurred further as Harold, guided by the whispers of Eleanor, unraveled the deep-seated grievances that bound her spirit. Days turned into nights as Harold became a conduit between two worlds. He facilitated conversations, healed old wounds, and navigated the complex tapestry of familial resentment. The house, once a source of dread, transformed into a bridge between the living and the departed. As Harold delved deeper into the spiritual realm, he found a sense of purpose in easing the suffering of those trapped between worlds. The house, once a place of isolation, became a sanctuary for lost spirits seeking closure. The lingering shadows that had haunted him now stood as silent witnesses to a journey of redemption and forgiveness. In time, the whispers faded, and the house embraced a newfound tranquility. Eleanor's spirit, along with others, found release, leaving behind a legacy of reconciliation. Harold, forever changed by the experience, carried the weight of a family's history on his shoulders, a burden that had transformed into a purposeful calling. As the years passed, the secluded retreat became a haven for those who sought solace beyond the veil. The living and the dead coexisted in harmony, their stories woven into the very fabric of the house. Harold, now an elder of the spiritual realm, continued to guide those who wandered between worlds, ensuring that the haunting whispers of the past found resolution. The house, once a vessel of torment, now stood as a testament to the enduring power of compassion and forgiveness. And as the wind whispered through the tall pines, it carried not the wails of lost souls, but the echoes of healing and redemption. It was a cold December evening, and the streets were deserted as Christopher walked home from school. The chill in the air seemed to penetrate his bones, but he couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that accompanied him. Christopher lived in an old Victorian house at the end of Chestnut Street, a house that had been in his family for generations. As he approached his home, he noticed something odd. The usually warm glow of the living room lights was absent, and the entire house stood in darkness. The silence that engulfed the surroundings made him uneasy, and his steps slowed involuntarily. Opening the creaky gate, Christopher entered the front yard. The wind whispered through the barren branches of the trees, creating an unsettling symphony. He fumbled with his keys, trying to unlock the front door. As it swung open, a cold draft greeted him, sending shivers down his spine. "Mom, Dad," Christopher called out, but only silence answered him. He glanced at the clock in the hallway. It was only 4:30 in the afternoon, and his parents should have been home. The emptiness of the house gnawed at him. Christopher decided to check the kitchen, hoping to find a note or some indication of where his parents might be. The wooden floor creaked beneath his feet as he walked through the dimly lit corridor. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding, and he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. In the kitchen, the only sound was the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. The table was set for dinner, untouched, and the aroma of a meal lingered in the air. The absence of his parents intensified, and anxiety clawed at Christopher's chest. He picked up the phone to call them, but there was no dial tone. The line was dead. His mind raced with thoughts of where his parents could be. Maybe they had an emergency and left in a hurry. Christopher tried to convince himself, but the sinking feeling persisted. He decided to search the house room by room, hoping to find a clue. As he ascended the creaky staircase, a floorboard squeaked beneath his weight. The sound echoed through the silent house, making him freeze. Christopher strained his ears, listening for any signs of movement. Nothing. With a deep breath, he continued his search, determined to unravel the mystery that shrouded his home. The hallway on the second floor felt colder, and the shadows seemed to dance along the walls. Christopher's steps were cautious as he pushed open the door to his parents' bedroom. The room was neat, undisturbed, and a chill ran down his spine. Where were they? Suddenly, a distant noise echoed through the house, like a soft whisper carried by the wind. Christopher's heart raced as he followed the sound, leading him to the attic door. It stood slightly ajar, and an icy draft seeped through the crack. Gathering his courage, he pushed the door open and climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. The attic was dimly lit by a single flickering bulb, casting eerie shadows across the dusty boxes and forgotten relics of the past. As Christopher scanned the room, his eyes widened with horror. A figure, hunched over, facing away from him. It was his mother, whispering something unintelligible. "Mom." Christopher's voice trembled as he approached, but his mother remained motionless. It was then that he noticed the crimson stains on the floor beneath her. Panic seized him as he turned her around, only to be met with lifeless eyes and a haunting silence that echoed through the attic. Christopher's hands trembled as he stumbled backward, his mind unable to comprehend the chilling scene before him. He felt a cold sweat forming on his forehead as his gaze darted around the attic, searching for answers. The whispering continued, now more audible, filling the air with an otherworldly presence. The atmosphere in the attic thickened, and Christopher struggled to catch his breath. He knew he had to leave, had to find help, but his legs felt like they were made of lead. A sudden realization struck him. His father was still missing. Fear propelled Christopher to his feet, and he raced back down the attic stairs. As he descended, the whispers grew louder, echoing hauntingly through the house. Determined to uncover the truth, Christopher reached for the doorknob of his father's study. The room was enveloped in darkness, with only the glow of the moon seeping through the curtains. Christopher's eyes fell upon the antique desk, cluttered with papers and old photographs. His father's leather chair was turned away, facing the window. With hesitant steps, Christopher approached, ready to confront whatever awaited him. As the chair slowly swiveled around, a gasp caught in his throat. It wasn't his father. It was an old, faded photograph of his family. eerily staring back at him. The whispers intensified, swirling around Christopher like an invisible force. He stumbled backward, his mind racing. The walls seemed to close in, and shadows morphed into unsettling shapes. Desperation set in, urging him to flee, but the unseen presence rooted him to the spot. A sudden gust of wind extinguished the candles in the room, plunging it into total darkness. Panic seized Christopher as he fumbled for the door, his hands shaking. The whispers now echoed in every corner of the house, creating an unnerving symphony. In the dim light of the hallway, a faint figure emerged, a silhouette that seemed to dance between reality and the supernatural. Christopher's breath caught as the figure approached, revealing an old man with hollow eyes and a tattered suit. "I've been waiting," the old man whispered, his voice sending chills down Christopher's spine, waiting for someone to break the silence. Christopher's mind raced to make sense of the cryptic words, but the old man's gaze held a history untold. The whispers swirled around them, carrying fragments of forgotten tales and untold secrets. Before Christopher could utter a word, the old man vanished into thin air, leaving behind an unsettling stillness. The whispers receded, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted, as if the house itself had exhaled a sigh of relief. Alone in the empty house, Christopher stood in the aftermath of the unexplained events. The mystery of his mother's lifeless form in the attic, the phantom figure in his father's study, and the elusive old man, the pieces of a puzzle that defied logical explanation.